Someone disrespected you recently. Not in a dramatic way, not openly, just enough to sting. Maybe they spoke over you. Maybe they joked at your expense and watched the room laugh. Maybe they canceled again and acted like your time was disposable, and you did what you've been trained to do. You smiled. You minimized it. You told yourself it wasn't worth the tension. But here's the truth most people never face. That moment wasn't small. It was a test. And the result of that test didn't stay in the past. It became a data point. A quiet note written into the other person's mind about who you are and how far they can go with you. Human interaction is not built on fairness. It's built on calibration. Every encounter is a silent negotiation where one question is being asked beneath the surface. What happens if I cross this person? Your response answers that question faster than any words ever could. When you laugh it off, you don't look mature. You look permissive. When you stay silent to keep the peace, you don't look evolved. You look available for more. Disrespect doesn't begin with cruelty. It begins with curiosity. People push lightly first. They probe. They test. And if nothing pushes back, the pressure increases. Not because they're evil, but because human nature follows the path of least resistance the way water follows gravity. Machiavelli understood this long before psychology had names for it. He watched empires fall not because leaders were immoral, but because they were soft in moments that demanded steel. He saw good men lose power not due to lack of virtue, but lack of consequence. His insight was brutal and precise. People do not respect intention. They respect enforcement. Think of rank like temperature. You don't argue with fire about whether it burns. You don't negotiate with gravity about whether it pulls. Their nature is established through effect, not explanation. The same is true with social position. If you don't establish the cost of crossing you, the environment assigns you the lowest possible value by default. This is where most people get trapped. They believe their internal goodness should speak for itself. They assume effort, empathy, patience, and fairness will be felt by others. But the social world doesn't run on what's felt. It runs on what's seen. And what's seen is behavior. Your thoughts don't create rank. Your boundaries do. Your values don't create respect. Your reactions do. Every time you explain instead of enforce, you quietly step down. Every time you say yes while your body screams no, you teach others where you belong. Every time you tolerate what you shouldn't, you lower the cost of disrespect until it becomes free. And once disrespect is free, it spreads. This is why certain people never get interrupted, not because they're louder, because interrupting them feels expensive. This is why some people say no without justification and no one challenges it. Not because they're dominant, because challenging them feels pointless. They have already claimed their position. Rank is not declared. It is demonstrated. Most people misunderstand this and swing to the opposite extreme. They think the answer is aggression, loudness, confrontation, drama. But that's just insecurity wearing armor. True authority is quiet, controlled. It doesn't chase validation or escalate emotionally. It simply does not allow certain behaviors to continue. Imagine a locked door. It doesn't argue. It doesn't explain. It doesn't raise its voice. It simply does not open unless the conditions are met. Over time, people stop knocking aggressively. They adjust their behavior, not out of fear, but out of understanding. That is power. And here's the part that changes everything. If you don't consciously claim your rank, society assigns you one unconsciously, not because you deserve less, but because ambiguity always resolves downward. Unclaimed space is occupied. Undefined boundaries are crossed. Undefined value is discounted. You can feel this in your own life if you're honest. How many times this week did you over-explain a simple decision? How many times did you accept something you resented just to avoid discomfort? How many times did you wait your turn while others took the floor? Each of those moments wasn't neutral. They were deposits into a story being written about you without your permission. Machiavelli warned that men judge by appearances because appearances are all they have. Your inner world might be rich, principled, and disciplined, but none of that exists socially until it's translated into action. Internal virtue without external structure is invisible, and what is invisible is treated as inconsequential. This is the awakening most people resist. Respect is not a reward for goodness. It is a response to boundaries. Right now, someone in your life is watching how much they can take. They're not malicious. They're measuring. And if you keep absorbing without consequence, they will keep applying pressure until something breaks. Usually you. This is not about becoming cruel. It's about becoming solid. Like stone beneath water. The river doesn't hate the rock. It simply flows differently because it's there. From this point forward, you are not here to be convenient. You are here to be defined. And once you understand that behavior creates rank, every interaction becomes clear. You stop asking why people treat you the way they do. You start seeing how you train them. And that realization, uncomfortable as it is the first real step toward power. Once you understand that rank is behavioral, the next question becomes unavoidable. Why do some people rarely get tested at all? Watch any group long enough and you'll see it. One person gets interrupted constantly. Another finishes every sentence undisturbed. One becomes the target of jokes. Another remains untouched. This has nothing to do with kindness, intelligence, or even confidence in the way most people define it. The real divider is danger, not physical danger, psychological danger. Some people broadcast a signal that says, "Crossing me has consequences." They don't announce it. They don't threaten. They don't posture. The signal is embedded in how they respond, how they pause, how they withdraw, how little they rush to smooth things over. Others broadcast the opposite signal without realizing it. They smile when disrespected. They laugh to release tension. They explain to be understood. They hurry to restore comfort the moment it's disturbed. And that behavior sends one clear message to the social environment. This person is safe to test. Safety in this context is not a virtue. It's an invitation. Think of it like a fence around a property. A high fence doesn't need guards shouting warnings. Its presence alone changes behavior. A low fence invites hopping. No fence at all invites wandering. When you over-signal friendliness, availability, and emotional openness in moments that require firmness, you remove the fence entirely, and people wander in. Over-smiling is one of the most damaging habits here. That reflexive grin when someone crosses a line. That nervous laugh when you're actually uncomfortable. You think you're showing emotional intelligence. What you're actually showing is self-betrayal. Your face is contradicting your reality, and people always believe the surface. Another signal is justification. The moment someone questions your choice and you rush into explanation, you're no longer standing on authority. You've entered negotiation. You're saying, if my reasons are good enough, you'll allow me to exist this way. That's not strength. That's permission-seeking. Then there's emotional availability without filtration. You absorb lateness. You excuse rudeness. You keep giving after the pattern is clear. You say, "It's fine," when it's not. And each time you do, you lower the psychological cost of mistreating you. These signals don't make you kind. They make you predictable. And predictable things are easy to use. Machiavelli's insight here was sharp. People move toward comfort and away from resistance automatically, not because they're villains, but because efficiency governs behavior. If disrespect costs nothing, it becomes routine. If it costs discomfort, awkwardness, or loss of access, it becomes rare. This is where the shift begins. You stop signaling safety. That doesn't mean becoming hostile. It means becoming opaque, unreadable, calm in a way that doesn't rush to repair the emotional climate when someone damages it. Next time someone crosses a line, you don't smile. You don't perform reassurance. Your face settles into neutrality. Not anger, not drama, just absence of compliance. That alone destabilizes the dynamic. Then you let silence do its work. Silence is not empty, it's pressure. When you don't rush to fill it, the other person is forced to sit with what they just did. Most people are deeply uncomfortable with that. They rely on your emotional labor to smooth things over. When you withhold it, the burden shifts back to them. Comfort, understand this clearly, is not a default right. It is a reward. People who treat you well earn ease. People who disrespect you earn tension. When you reverse this pattern, behavior recalibrates without a single lecture. This is why fear and love were never opposites to Machiavelli. He wasn't advocating cruelty. He was describing leverage. Love without consequence becomes entitlement. Fear without boundaries becomes tyranny. But the quiet understanding that crossing you has a price creates balance. Think of electricity. It's useful only when contained. Without insulation, it destroys everything it touches. Your emotional openness is the same. Without structure, it harms you. Now comes a crucial principle most people resist. If someone can emotionally trigger you, they control you. Every visible reaction is a lever handed over. The moment your face tightens, your voice changes, your energy spikes, the other person learns where the switch is, and once they know it exists, they will use it. Not always consciously, but reliably. This is why the same people keep getting under your skin in the same way. They're not creative. They're just pressing the button that worked last time. Emotional reactions are invitations. They say, "This works. Try again." So you remove the invitation. You don't suppress emotion internally. You simply stop broadcasting it externally to those who haven't earned access. Your face becomes stone. Your tone remains level. Your body stays still. You don't defend. You don't explain. You don't perform pain or anger for their consumption. And something fascinating happens. The person who expected impact suddenly looks foolish, like someone who swung hard and hit nothing but air. The power flips. They feel exposed. You remain intact. This is not coldness. This is selection. You are choosing who gets access to your inner world. Your reactions become currency instead of leaks. You stop feeding those who feed on them. Machiavelli understood that the people around you are mirrors of what you tolerate. If you are surrounded by disrespect, it's not because you deserve it. It's because you've been subsidizing it with reactions, explanations, and endless chances. Remove the subsidy. Let them feel the absence. Silence, neutrality, and delayed response are not passive. They are active pressure. They teach faster than words ever will. And once people realize they can't move you emotionally, they stop trying. That's when respect begins to solidify. Not because you demanded it, because you became difficult to misuse. Once you've removed the signals of safety and cut off emotional access, there's one move that crystallizes everything: naming disrespect once, then disappearing into silence. Most people fail here because they swing between two ineffective extremes. They either ignore disrespect entirely, hoping it fades, Or they address it repeatedly, explaining how it made them feel, trying to educate the other person into decency. Both approaches train the same outcome. Ignoring teaches permission. Repeating teaches desperation. Disrespect that is ignored always escalates. Disrespect that is over-discussed turns into a debate, and debates imply uncertainty. The moment you sound like you're trying to convince someone to respect you, you've already lost leverage. There is a third way. You name what happened once, cleanly, without emotion, without commentary, and then you stop talking. That single sentence acts like a spotlight. It removes the fog that disrespect hides behind. Most disrespect relies on ambiguity. I was just joking. I didn't realize. You're too sensitive. The moment you name the behavior plainly, the ambiguity collapses. You interrupted me. That comment was unnecessary. This doesn't work for me. No adjectives, no backstory, no explanation. Then silence. That silence is not weakness. It's a vacuum, and humans are deeply uncomfortable in vacuums. The other person is now exposed. They have to choose their next move while everyone watches. Apologize, double down, squirm. Whatever they do, the social cost lands on them, not you. This is why it works. You're not attacking their character. You're naming their action. That makes it undeniable. And because you don't continue talking, you're not negotiating. You're not seeking agreement. You're stating reality and letting it stand. Here's the rule that separates power from performance. You do this once. If you repeat yourself, the spell breaks. Repetition communicates that you're invested in their validation, that you need them to understand, that you're hoping this time it will land. It won't. People who respect you hear you the first time. People who don't won't start because you said it louder. So you name it once. Then you let your next action enforce the boundary, which brings us to the next fracture point. Justification. You've been trained to believe that mature, good people explain themselves. That clarity requires reasons. That boundaries must be defended with logic. This training quietly dismantles your authority. Explanation lowers position. The moment you justify your decision, you imply it's open for review. You invite negotiation. And negotiation only happens when power is unclear. Think of people who command respect naturally. When they decline something, do they write paragraphs? When they say no, do they apologize for it? When they set a boundary, do they soften it with reasons? They don't. They decide. Then they move on. When you explain, you're not being generous. You're revealing insecurity. You're signaling that you're not fully convinced you're allowed to choose yourself without permission. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Authority does not come from reasoning. It comes from finality. Decisions that don't seek approval reshape the room. They teach others how to interact with you going forward. So the shift is simple and brutal. When you decide, stop talking. I'm not available. That doesn't work for me. I've chosen differently. No because. No apology, no defense. People will push. They'll ask why. They'll express confusion or disappointment. That's not communication, that's testing. They're checking whether you'll crack and revert to the old pattern of explanation. You can acknowledge emotion without surrendering position. I understand you're disappointed. And then you stop. The moment you stop justifying, something changes. People may not like your decision, but they stop treating it as negotiable. You move from being someone who needs approval to someone whose choices stand on their own. Next comes one of the most misunderstood levers of respect: access. Instant availability signals low value, not morally, but psychologically. Scarcity is how the human brain assigns importance. What's always available feels cheap. What's limited feels significant. Look at your own behavior. Messages you know you'll get another chance to answer feel less urgent. People who are harder to reach command more attention, not because they're better, but because access to them feels conditional. Your behavior teaches people how to value your time. When you reply instantly to everything, you say, "I'm waiting." When you say yes immediately, you say, "I have nothing else." When you rearrange your life for others repeatedly, you say, "My time ranks lower than yours." None of this is intentional, but behavior is louder than intention. Delaying access is not manipulation. It's alignment with reality. Your time is limited. Your energy does have boundaries. You're just starting to behave like it. Messages don't require instant replies. Plans don't require immediate commitment. Availability becomes intentional, not automatic. Those who value you will adjust. Those who relied on your convenience will resist. That resistance is information, which leads to the final lesson of this part: discomfort. You've been conditioned to eliminate it, to smooth it over, to rescue others from awkwardness. But discomfort is how behavior changes. Words explain. Discomfort teaches. When someone disrespects you and you go quiet, the tension educates them. When someone cancels and you don't chase to reschedule, the gap educates them. When someone talks over you and you stop speaking entirely, the silence educates them. You stop protecting people from the consequences of their actions. Like touching a hot surface, the lesson doesn't require explanation. The nervous system learns faster than the mind. This is where most people fail. They step in too quickly. They soften the blow. They restore comfort. And in doing so, they erase the lesson. Let the silence stretch. Let the awkwardness do its work. Respect doesn't grow from being understood. It grows from being felt. And once you allow discomfort to teach, you no longer need to chase respect. It starts adjusting itself around you. There is a moment when all the previous lessons converge into a single, irreversible act: withdrawal. Not withdrawal as drama. Not withdrawal as punishment. Withdrawal as consequence. Most people never reach this point because they're addicted to closure. They want to explain. They want to be understood. They want the other person to admit fault, to acknowledge the harm, to finally get it. And in chasing that moment, they stay connected to the very people who prove they don't respect them. Machiavelli would call this a fatal error. Words without action teach people that your boundaries are optional. Every time you stay after repeated disrespect, you communicate one thing: you can do this, and I will remain. And once someone learns that, nothing you say matters anymore. This is why withdrawal is the only language some people understand. Not everyone deserves a final conversation. Not everyone earns closure. Closure is a privilege reserved for relationships that tried, for people who adjusted when you named the line, for those who showed good faith. Repeated disrespect voids that privilege. So when the pattern is clear, you leave. No warning, no exit speech, no emotional explanation. You remove your presence, your attention, your energy from their world as cleanly as turning off a light. This feels wrong at first because you've been trained to equate silence with cruelty. But staying where you are not respected is not kindness. It's self-erasure. Machiavelli understood something uncomfortable. Staying is endorsement. If you continue to give access after someone shows you who they are, you are co-signing the behavior. Withdrawal breaks the pattern because it removes the reward. Disrespect thrives on access, on reaction, on emotional engagement. When those disappear, the behavior collapses under its own weight. And here's the part that stuns most people. The ones who truly didn't care won't chase. They already extracted what they wanted. Your absence simply confirms what was always true. But some will reach out. They'll act confused. They'll ask what happened. They'll want to talk things through. This is not accountability. It's damage control. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to regain access. Do not engage. If you respond at all, keep it brutally simple. I've moved on. No explanation. No emotion. No invitation. Why? Because explanation gives them another opening, another angle, another chance to negotiate your return without changing their behavior. Silence closes the door completely. You are not their teacher. You are not their therapist. You are not responsible for their growth. Your responsibility is to your own dignity. This is the point where most people realize something unsettling. Respect doesn't come from being good. It comes from being willing to leave. Not loudly, not angrily, quietly, decisively. Once people see that disrespect costs them access to you, the dynamic rewrites itself. Some adjust, some disappear. Either outcome is a win. Now, step back and look at the full picture. Society does not protect endlessly patient people. It does not reward those who absorb everything silently. It watches who enforces boundaries and who doesn't, who stays when mistreated and who walks away, who makes disrespect expensive and who makes it free. Those who create consequences rise in rank, not because they're cruel, because they're clear. There is a dangerous misunderstanding here that must be addressed. This path is not about becoming harmful. Harmful people enjoy causing pain. They seek dominance for its own sake. They destroy because they can. That is weakness disguised as power. What you are becoming is not harmful. You are becoming non-harmless. Harmless people are safe to disrespect. Everyone knows they will explain, forgive, stay, and absorb. They have no teeth. Not because they lack values, but because they refuse to protect them. A non-harmless person is different. They don't attack unprovoked. They don't seek conflict. But when crossed, something changes. They become firm, silent, final. Like a pressure plate that doesn't move until weight is applied. And when it does, the response is immediate and decisive. Here's the most important truth of all. It only takes one time, one moment where you name the line and go silent, one decision where you don't justify, one withdrawal without explanation. That single act rewrites the entire relationship because the old rules stop working. People recalibrate fast when consequences appear. This is why power doesn't require constant enforcement. It requires one credible demonstration. Machiavelli wrote that most people see what you appear to be, not who you are. You've spent too long trying to prove your worth through tolerance, availability, and understanding. None of those create respect. Respect comes from what people fear losing: your time, your presence, your attention, your access. The moment others realize those are not guaranteed, something shifts. They begin to treat you differently, not because you demanded it, but because you made it real. You were never meant to beg for dignity. You were meant to embody it. Now there is only one step left. To act. Think of one person who has been testing you. Just one. The next time they cross the line, do not revert to the old script. Choose one move, name it once. Delay access. Withdraw. Watch what happens when you stop playing by rules that were written to keep you small. This is not self-help. This is self-command. And once you taste it, you will never go back. What comes next is the hardest part, not because it's complicated, but because it forces you to let go of who you used to be. After withdrawal, after silence, after consequences, there is a quiet space where something unfamiliar appears. Power, not loud power, not aggressive power, but internal command. And this is where many people sabotage themselves. They mistake the calm for emptiness. They mistake distance for loneliness. They mistake strength for coldness. And in that confusion, they rush back to old habits. Don't. That quiet is not absence. It's sovereignty. You've spent most of your life reacting, explaining, adjusting, managing other people's emotions, being the stabilizer in rooms that never stabilized you in return. When that stops, your nervous system panics. It asks, "Am I doing something wrong?" That voice is not intuition, it's conditioning. You were trained to equate usefulness with worth, to believe that being needed meant being valued, to assume that if you weren't constantly available, you would be forgotten. That belief kept you obedient. It kept you predictable, and predictability is the enemy of respect. Machiavelli understood that power is not built in applause. It's built in restraint, in the ability to sit inside tension without dissolving it, in the discipline to let others reveal themselves while you remain still. This is where the real transformation locks in. You stop trying to be understood by everyone. You stop trying to be liked by people who benefit from your softness. You stop trying to maintain access at the cost of your dignity. Instead, you become selective. Selective with your time. Selective with your words. Selective with your emotional availability. Think of your presence like fire. When it's everywhere, it warms nothing. When it's contained, it becomes powerful. People feel the difference immediately, even if they can't articulate it. Conversations change. The way people approach you changes. The way they test you changes. Some stop testing altogether. Others test once, feel resistance, and recalibrate. A few walk away. That last group is the proof that this was never mutual respect to begin with. They weren't connected to you. They were connected to your compliance. And here's the paradox most people miss. You don't become respected by convincing others of your value. You become respected by acting as if your value is not up for debate. Silence becomes your filter. Distance becomes your signal. Finality becomes your language. You are no longer explaining your boundaries. You are enforcing them through behavior. You are no longer asking to be treated well. You are structuring your life so mistreatment removes access automatically. This is not emotional shutdown. It's emotional discipline. Your reactions are no longer public property. Your vulnerability is no longer free. Your attention is no longer unlimited. And because of that, it gains weight. Machiavelli's deepest insight was not about fear or manipulation. It was about self-command. The man who cannot govern himself will always be governed by others. The man who needs constant validation will always be controlled by those who offer it selectively. But when you no longer chase approval, something irreversible happens. People feel it. They don't always like it, but they respect it. Your words become fewer, but sharper. Your presence becomes rarer, but heavier. Your absence begins to speak louder than your explanations ever did. This is when you realize something profound. You don't need to prove your strength. You only need to stop disproving it. Every time you don't react, every time you don't explain, every time you walk away instead of negotiating your dignity, those moments compound. And slowly, the world adjusts. Not because it became fair, but because you stopped being easy. The old version of you survived by being agreeable. This version survives by being precise, calm, deliberate, unavailable to nonsense. You are not here to be harmless. You are here to be grounded, not aggressive, not cruel, but solid enough that crossing you feels consequential. This is the difference between a door that looks open and one that quietly locks. From this point forward, you don't announce changes, you don't warn, you don't threaten, you simply act differently. And behavior, as Machiavelli knew, rewrites perception faster than any argument ever could. So here is your final instruction. Pick one principle you learned. Just one. Apply it immediately. Not later. Not when it's comfortable. Name disrespect once and go silent. Delay access without explanation. Withdraw when the pattern is clear. Let that single action do what years of patience never did. Because respect doesn't come from asking. It doesn't come from hoping. It doesn't come from being endlessly good. It comes from what people fear losing when they cross you. And once they realize they can lose you, everything changes.